There seems to be a myth that you have to have a big, beautiful farmhouse or a large house or the perfect setup in order to homestead, which is completely false. You can start homesteading wherever you are at any time. For example, we homestead it's a double wide. Manufactured home sounds a little fancier, but technically it's a double wide. When we first started homesteading, it was in a 1974 single wide trailer on rented property, which is another myth that people have, that you have to own your own home or have this big elaborate setup in order to homestead. You don't. You can totally do it without having a house or doing it in a small house like we have here. I think the thing about homesteading you have to remember is you have to be able to figure things out. And there's nothing like figuring out how to homestead, how to have food storage. If you've seen any of my food storage videos, you've seen where we've turned different closets and lots of space used underneath our bed in order to store all of our food storage. You have to get creative, but you can definitely figure it out and do elements of homesteading no matter where you're at. There's also myths that not only do you need to have that picture perfect setup or this cabin in the woods, but that in order to have livestock, that you need to have a large barn or large setup in all of these outbuildings, which is totally false. We raise all of our own meat, including beef cattle, pigs, meat birds, and hens. We don't have a single barn, you guys. We don't even have a garage. There's definitely makeshift ways to do things. Now, we actually homesteaded for well over, oh my goodness, 17 plus years without even having a tractor. We do have a tractor now, but we just got this tractor last year. And as you can see, we are just using canopies that you buy. They're the steel ones. You get them from Costco. You can order them online. This is my barn. This is what protects our tractor from the elements. So it is ideal if you have some type of structure, especially as you begin to get some equipment, especially if you live in an environment that's really rainy like the Pacific Northwest, so that you can protect it and it's going to last longer for you. But you can also do it pretty much on the cheap. And you can see we've got these anchored into things. We have this well tied down. You can see we've even got lines. We had a big windstorm that was coming through this past weekend. So there are some things that you'll have to do, making sure it's well secured, but you can keep that tied down and protect your stuff. Now, we've been homesteading for over 21 years. My husband and I have been married for 21 years, and we started homesteading when we first got married. And as you have seen, we don't have a garage. We moved here onto this property in 2006, and we're hoping to be able to put up a shop or a garage type building, but that hasn't happened yet. So another really easy option is to do something like a storage container. Is it pretty? Not really. Is it functional? Yes. Is it a lot cheaper and a lot faster than building something? Yes. So we have lived by the motto as much as possible to be able to only do things that we can pay for in cash and not have to put on credit. Right now, we are actually completely debt free. Now, have we built a home when we moved on here, a stick-built home? There's no way we could have our mortgage paid off like we do right now. Kind of the same thing. If we had built a big garage or a shop, there's no way it would be paid off. But we did have enough money saved to be able to purchase this outright, not have to put it on a credit card or get any type of loan, and it was delivered and set up within a couple of weeks. So you can store a lot in one of these. So this is where we store the majority of all of my husband's tools, a lot of the equipment that we use on the homestead. One, we want it to be out of the elements, but two, we want it to be secure because there's not always honest people in the world, and things could walk away if they're not secured behind locked doors, right? We also use it as our home gym. So living as far out as we do, the closest gym, I think the closest gym with equipment, if it's even open still, is like over 45 minutes one way from us. So we have our weight bench here. So this right here is where I work out, works really well in here. And then we also have all of the storage spots for all of our wood products. So we're doing the wooden bench knives and wooden dough scrapers my husband's making by hand. He doesn't have a wood shop, right? We don't have a shop, we don't have a garage. So we've just put a shelving unit in here, and that works really well. It keeps everything dry, and then when we're home during the day on really hot days, we do open this up because that's one of the downfalls. There's not a lot of ventilation in there, but it stays really well during the winter months. Everything stays extremely dry, and we can lock this bad boy up like Fort Knox, which we do every single night. Now, there's another myth that people think in order to homestead, especially if you have livestock, that you are going to move out in the woods completely off grid and you're not going to have a job. Like homesteading is your job and it's going to completely provide for you. Now, there are cases of people who have done that, but my husband and I have been raising our own livestock. Both of us have had day jobs, sometimes having up to 2 jobs where we're commuting, and we have been raising the cattle, the pigs, doing the whole garden as well as the chickens, and still working day jobs. Is it doable? Absolutely. Is it work? Yes, it is. And if you are a homesteader, I guarantee you, you won't be a homesteader for long if you are afraid of work, because there is work involved, but it is so rewarding. Now, the other question, especially in regards to livestock, I should say that I get in that is both like a myth with homesteading, is that you can't go on vacation if you have a large garden or if you have livestock. And that is completely false. We've had all of this for decades and we go on vacation. Now, do you have to have certain things in place in order to do that? Yes, but you can go on vacation, especially if you're just going on weekend trips or like a 3 or 4 day weekend, you can absolutely do it. Now, if you're going to be going on, especially with livestock, if you're going to be going longer for that, you do need to have someone either stay at your place or your property, and or someone who lives close by, a neighbor or friend, or somebody who can come and check on the animals, make sure they have water and feed, etc. while you're gone. You definitely still want to have eyes on the place, hands and feet on the place, etc. But it doesn't have to be you. And for the short term, like we like to go camping on the weekends. Thankfully, I do have family who can watch over the place if need be. But the cattle only need water during the summer months because they're just grass fed, so they're on pasture. So there's no feeding involved for the cattle. And you can put different automatic waterers on your tanks, or just make sure you have enough water containers filled up with them, and they'll be fine. I do still recommend, if you can, have someone check their water, especially if it's really hot, because, you know, things can happen where for some reason it, you know, the automatic water fails or hose breaks or whatnot. And then if you've got your chickens, you can fill up large feeders, large waters, have them topped off before you go. Test it for a couple of weeks beforehand to see how long they go before they run out. And again, it's still, I do recommend that you have someone come and check it, but it's completely doable to go on vacation even when you have livestock and you have a garden. Same thing with the garden. You can use drip hoses, you can do automatic waterers if you need to do some type of irrigation for your garden. It's completely doable. Now, the other big myth is that you have to have land, which I realize I probably sound a little bit like a hypocrite right now because I am standing in a big expanse of acreage, and we do have almost 15 acres of land where we homestead. However, when we started, we were renting and we didn't have any land. We still were able to do a garden and we did still have some livestock, but we were leasing the property or using someone else's property in order to do so. My brother, which I shared if you listen to the podcast episodes about bringing livestock on, especially if it's not where you live, I talked about how one of my brothers has a lot of livestock. He has a large herd and he doesn't have any property for his cattle. And so he leases from several different people and has a great system set up, and he's raised cattle like that for over, oh my goodness, I think like 20 years. So it is very doable. Of course, is it ideal as having the livestock right at your place? Probably not as ideal, but it's definitely something that is workable and that you can figure it out. Again, like homesteading is something that you just will have to find different ways to make it work for you. And I think this is probably considered a bonus myth or a bonus tip. I don't know necessarily if myth is the right word, but when you are homesteading, there is no perfect setup for every single person. And I think it's important to remember, not only with homesteading, but with life in general. Living in this age, you're watching me via YouTube, which I'm very thankful for. I have made a ton of awesome connections my livelihood is using the internet through YouTube and the courses and my books and all of that and the podcast. But you're gonna see what works best for each person. I share what works best for where we're living, where we're at with life, with you guys. And there's gonna be some general practices that are, yes, these are general practices kind of no matter where, but you're gonna see that there's tons of different ways to homestead. And no two homesteads look the exact same, nor should they. It should be about what works for you and for your family. And don't worry about if that doesn't look perfect like so-and-so's, or if some people see the way you're doing things and they don't get it, because quite frankly, most people don't understand homesteaders anyways. Why don't you just go to the store? Why are you putting all that effort and doing all of that work when you could just go to the store and buy it yourself? People don't really get us, and that's completely okay, as long as you remember that it's your journey and it's your homestead, and you don't need to be measuring it against some rod of perfectionism that has been set by someone else. If you want to learn more about our setup for raising a year's worth of meat and all of our livestock, make sure that you go and check out that video for a homestead barnyard tour and systems.